I think it has a lot of things that are not in any other movies, but they are still in the book. I remember watching it, and it has a scene where when Beth dies, her spirit kind of looms over Jo, and that is in the book. Her spirit is present, and it has this moment after Beth dies where Jo tries to take Beth's place. She tries to be this spirit of the home. That is also in the book, but it is not in any other films.
Oh, yeah, with the birds. I remember that all the birds, they come back and Jo is like, the birds are going to be sad. Yeah, that is very prominent. And the other thing I really enjoy about it, and this is something that really in some adaptations are either hit or miss, this really feels like it is the story of Meg Jo, Beth, and Amy, and not like Jo is Jo. I don't know. I felt like we saw all of them go through their own stories rather than just be, oh, here is Jo observing her sister's stories. You know what I mean?
Yes, I agree. I think it actually puts more effort on Laurie as well. He doesn't have a full character arc, but there is a scene where he proposes Jo and he is really angry when she says no. There's a bit of that in the 1949 film. You get this idea that he does have this temper.
I always remember the way that when he walked away, I just remember being like, oh, I guess I found that little scary. I didn't know why he was reacting that way, but I was like, that is harsh. Now, at that point, I was probably like 7. I hadn't read the book yet, so it definitely got that feeling that I got when reading the book as well, sort of unreasonable, and I was very much clear these two do not belong together.
He's puffing when he walks away. He's so angry.
Yeah, and that guy, he was a pretty famous actor at that time. He was in The Mister of Edwin Drood. That one had Montgomery in it. He was kind of that same way a little bit in there. But it worked because he wasn't Edwin, but he was the brother of Helena, and he is supposed to have kind of tantrum. I think that was kind of his thing, to have these tantrum characters.
Okay. The actor's name is Douglas Montgomery. He is the first Laurie.
I have to say, overall, I think all the actors in this are very good. As much as, again, I always say Amy should be played by 2 actresses, one younger, one older. This one is probably one of the better older actress playing younger Amy type of things, because they don't make her too annoying. Comparing to some of the other ones out there, I will mention that.
That is true. She's not a character that I hate in this version. I really like her. I don't usually hate Amy. In the book, I really like Amy. Some versions, you almost feel like the makers of the film want you to hate Amy, which is very unfortunate.
Thank you so much for sharing my love for Little Woman. All the transcriptions of the Little Woman podcast are now available as paperbacks, ebooks, and as audiobooks on Amazon, Kindle, Nook, and bookstores. You can find all the links from the description. And now, back to the show.
That is why I feel like a lot of people are fueled by the idea, oh, Amy is so annoying, because some of the versions they see is a 20-something-year-old going around screaming and whining, trying to act like a little kid, when it just makes them more annoying. Amy is a character who deserves much better representations, and this is, I would say, pretty good presentation here. Funny enough, the actress at some point was like 5 or 6 months pregnant, which is why you see in some scenes her dresses are a little worn down, but they make it work. They are poor, and they manage to work that around it. It was like in the beginning of the shoot, she was like, oh, by the way, I'm pregnant. I think if I remember correctly, when Amy is older towards the end scenes, because she is wearing more fitting dresses. But in the beginning, when she is a schoolgirl, when she is supposed to be really young, she is pregnant. I always thought that was amusing.
It helps that the actress has kind of a baby face.
Yeah, and the writing, I think, did pretty well, too. Instead of her being 12, she probably comes across here more like 15, 16. If I had to try to put an age to her, she is still obviously the youngest, but not childish.
With the movies that were made in the 1930s, a lot of times the actors, they look older than the characters they are supposed to play because the makeup was quite heavy during the time.
Katharine Hepburn was in her 20s, right? It feels very much like she is teenager in the beginning. That is just the power of Katharine Hepburn.
She makes it work. I was actually planning to buy Katharine Hepburn's biography, the one that she wrote herself, because I want to hear what were her thoughts about Little Woman. That would be interesting.
Oh, yeah. I can only imagine. I hope she would say there that she had a good time, because sometimes you will hear certain actors to be like, oh, I love this movie and I love this role. And then they go like, oh, I hated doing it. I think she liked it.
Yes, I think so. We talked about this earlier. There are people who complain that she was not pretty enough to play Jo, but Jo is not written to be conventionally beautiful. And Katharine Hepburn was this tall woman, and she has sort of an angular face.
There was a movie where she dressed up to be a guy with Cary Grant. She has very androgynous appearance.
And then we have Douglas Montgomery, who played Laurie, and he's more effeminate.
Yes, very pretty.
Yes, a very pretty guy.
Casting in this was very good. They were great, and I think that the story went really well. It followed through the story, and without them saying, like, 2 years have passed, instead of saying Meg getting engages to marry John. They didn't have to get all that to know that time has passed. The story told itself, and the actors made it go, oh, they are growing up. So I think that is a bonus. If you would have to put into a spot at the moment, where would you want to put it?
I think this goes pretty high on my list.
I am thinking of number 2 or number 3 at the moment.
I think it is going to be my number 3 at the moment.
I am just going to, put it down to my little notepad so I don't forget.
Paul Lucas, who plays Professor Bear, he was from Hungary.
Yes, and I actually remember that because I was just looking at my post I made about Friedrich and the different actors and their nationalities, because the next one, Trasnobrazi, he is Italian. He's probably one of my favorite Friedrichs.
It has been a while since I saw the 1933 version, but I think it also has the scene where Friedrich plays the piano and Jo is listening.
I just remembered the words, my senses fail, the burning desire devours me. That is the poem that is at the music.
Yes, Goethe. It is perfect because Louisa May Alcott loved Goethe, and he was one of the models for Friedrich's character. Whoever wrote the 1933 film, I guess they knew about it, and it makes me so happy.
One thing I will say about the 1933 version, I think it was a good starting off for the Jo and Friedrich shippers. It is not as much as in the book, but it is still pretty good. There is the piano scene, but then you also have their first meeting. It shows off who he is very clearly, great with kids, helpful to the staff, and a gentleman. I think the overall vibe that the film has is probably one of the best of the adaptations of book to screen.
I think there is even a moment when he asks Jo if he could write to Jo's father. He wants Jo's father's permission before he is going to ask Jo to marry him.
That is right before she goes, oh yeah, I have been writing about you to them. That is when she finds about Beth being sick and she goes home. I remember that. This is one of the versions, I think, if you are going to introduce Little Women to anyone, this is one of the ones that you start with.